Welcome to Vocdoni Community Call. This is already the 5th Vocdoni coffee we organize. Today is a special session, let's say, because you will be able to register to Vocdoni Community. That is basically an entity we have created in Vocdoni platform. So all of you can try out the app and also keep up to date with the latest news from Vocdoni, as well as participate in voting processes and also try the last features we release on the app. If you want to be included on the census of this entity and start using the Vocdoni app, please fill the form that I will share now in the chat. You can also find links on shared notes or notes compartidas if you have it in Catalan or Spanish. I shared the link on the chat. If you fill this form, that basically it asks you for your name and email. During this call, you will receive an email to validate your identity using the app, and you will be part of the census of Vocdoni community entity. At the end of the community call, we will do a dummy voting process so you can test it. Besides that, well, we want also to give a special thanks to Luis Fernando, who has started translating Vocdoni platform into Portuguese, and well, he's helping to make Vocdoni more universal and accessible. And we invite all of you to translate your Vocdoni to your own language on our Web-late project. So starting with the agenda that you can find share notes, I will present some updates on Vocdoni platform and also regarding the project. Then Manos will present our support for web voting on Vocdoni platform. So now we are opening a new channel for voting. And then Jordi Moraleda will update on last developments of Vocdoni Bridge, that is our token-based voting solution. At the end, as always, as I said, we will have a more relaxed part for debate, questions, and answers. So let's start with the general update. As you may know, we are working on this main both projects that are Vocdoni platform and Vocdoni Bridge. The Vocdoni platform is more focused on, let's say, the real world, and Vocdoni Bridge is more focused on the crypto space, as it allows voting with ERC20 or ERC70, 721 tokens. So regarding the new Vocdoni platform features, I will share now the screen to show you. Okay. Do you see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, on Vocdoni platform, we add some features like the ability to send validation links using an email. So from now, you can add members on your members list of your organization, and then you can send directly a validation email to the member or the members you want to be registered on the organization using the app. So they receive a deep link, a unique deep link to their email that they can use to validate their identity created on the app against the organization database. This makes really painful, less painful the process of validating members. You can even do a bulk mailing, selecting different members, so you can send this validation email to different members at once. Then we have another feature that is members tagging. So from now you can give attributes and give different properties to members on the member list, and this will open the possibility of creating segmented censuses on Vocdoni platform, so you can create voting processes segmented only to a part of your member list. So this means giving voting rights only to a part of your member list. Then we add also the ability to import members manually, and this makes super easy and fast to add new members. If you need to add only one person, is much or two persons is much faster than uploading an extra CSV sometimes. And then another feature we just added on the manager that will be pushed onto the production branch soon in the following days is the ability of adding images to IPFS with image uploader dialog. What it makes also super easy to add image on the platform, as you don't need to upload the file in another hosting services and then paste the link on the manager. So these are all the news regarding the platform. We are super excited about these features, as it makes less painful the process of creating voting processes, creating news, and interact with your members base. Besides that, we also have been participating in quadratic funding experiment, that is CLR or Clear fund, that they are applying minimal anti-collusion infrastructure that basically allows you to donate to projects and these projects can have multiplied the money they receive. Also, we are participating in the Gitcoin Grants Round 8 that starts tomorrow. So you are invited also to donate to both platforms, to Vocdoni, so you can help us to continue developing our solutions. So now I will let Manos to start explaining the multi-channel voting. So I will do a short introduction on that. Basically, while working with different customers and users on Vocdoni platform, we realized that one of the main concerns for the organizations is accessibility, especially considering that sometimes some of these organizations have to grant participation rights to their members. Imagine a cooperative with members, or municipality with citizens. That's why we decided a few months ago to focus some of our efforts on making our voting systems compatible with different channels, such as a smartphone app, that is the default channel, but also web, so allowing accessibility through internet browsers. To date, we have carried out voting processes using web as a channel, with censuses of almost 300,000 people. So we noticed that this channel for voting is getting attention and is seen as useful for organizations. And now this system of web voting is integrated in the platform so organizations are able to create voting processes accessible via web. So now, Manos, if you want to explain a little bit more of this new development, I will give you rights to share the screen and the
That's how it works, because I was wondering. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Just a minute so I can find what I'm gonna share. Okay, great. So I think now you should be able to see my screen. Is actually the Play Store.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. What I want to share with all of you today has to do with a bit of small change in paradigm. Let's say adding some flexibility in how Vocdoni is being used. So currently, up to now, I'm not sure in the screen. So this was the image I found. So the main voting would take place from the app itself. And the idea is that the app is responsible to communicate with all the decentralized infrastructure of Vocdoni, get the information of the voting process, but also at the same time, maintain the information of the identity of the user. This for Vocdoni is a critical part because considering that the identity of the user lies inside the app, this means we have like a self-custody of the identity. And this gives the necessary security, let's say, guarantees. Nevertheless, we find ourselves in many situations where maintaining such high levels, let's say, of security, which usually are barriers or trade-offs with usability, are not necessary. So in order to attack these kind of cases, we were thinking of introducing different kinds of identities and different kinds of voting. So right now, how the identity is related with the voting itself is actually that the identity don't get very, it's not very technical what I'm going to explain, but actually the way a user belongs to the census is that his public key, so he generates a key pair, and his public key belongs to a Merkle tree that forms a census. So the only thing you need to do in order to prove to participate in the voting process is to prove that you are part of this tree. Right now, this was being done using the identity of the app. Nevertheless, what we designed and introduced in this new version is that there are different ways to create identities. So up to now, the normal process, so this here you see the manager of that organizations can use to administrate their members. So we have presented this before. For example, here are the members of this test organization that I have created. So the normal process would be that an organization would import its members, and after that, the members would need to register using the app. So here you see that we have one member that is registered through the app and the other is not. And the idea is that from here we could create censuses, but these censuses would include only users that are registered, so users that have the app already. What we were looking was for generating alternative identities. So generating census with credentials that do not depend on the app. So we came up with the following two ideas. The one would be to generate credentials, so identities in the backend. So the one who runs the infrastructure, in this case Vocdoni, or in an infrastructure as a service model, the organization itself would have the custody of the identities, or even allow for a totally decentralized way of doing it that doesn't need a centralized backend, which would be having the front end itself generating the keys. Of course, we decided that these keys had to be for ephemeral, and they could be used only once in order to guarantee that they cannot be used in future voting processes without the people who organize it knowing it. So let's say maintain some level of security. And the result of all this, I will show you right now. So for example, right now, if you create a voting census, let's say we create here a new mixed census. So while before this census would have the size of 1, would include only the validated members, now it has created already an identity for the member that was not registered using the app. So this census can be used by when you create a new process. So this is the screen of creating processes. Not sure if all you are familiar with it, but the idea is that this is the result of a process that's already living in the blockchain and IPFS. So this is a process called mixed voting that allows this option, and these are the information that describe the process itself. What's the difference from what was going before? First of all, that we have the ephemeral identities, and second of all, that using these ephemeral identities, that the user can access this web page that, if you remember from the original that I was showing, is kind of similar, that allows you just following a simple link with the credentials, so with your ephemeral identity, to participate in the voting process. So the user sees the information of the process itself, and he can send his vote. Okay, so this is an example from a process that was already running. So right now, this process can be accessed.
Someone has the microphone open.
Yeah. So right now, a user can access, if the user has the app installed, he can vote through the app directly. But if he doesn't, he can use this web version of the process in order to vote. So we can support for voting processes that include both app and non-app users. Apart from that, we have created a second feature which is related to what I mentioned before as the front-end based generation of the identities. So let's assume that we have the case of an entity that doesn't want to provide any kind of data to Vocdoni. And they want to create a voting process that doesn't use any of the centralized infrastructure of Vocdoni. So we have created a new web page for creating this type of processes where the organization can upload a CSV with information as with which is structured the way they like. I have an example here. So this is a very simple Excel, for example, that can be used. I don't know if you can see it. I was trying to zoom. Okay. So we assume that the entity has a database with some identification for its members, right? An ID corresponding to this organization, the first name and the last name. So what the organization can do is that they can upload this information directly as it is to our web page. They can fill in the information as they used to do before about the description of this process. Okay, and the result of this. So here we define the time frame when the process will start and everything. Okay. So the result of this is that there will be an automatic login page created. And this login page is can be shared with one unique link that can be accessed by everyone. So this solves the distribution issue of how the users will access the voting process. For example, here you see the process as it looked before, but we also see that there is this form URI. This is probably updating still, so we can use the previous one. So here you can see that just by the Excel that was imported, here you can see that the names of the columns of the Excel are formed in field forms where the user can use the information that was existing in the Excel in order to log in and participate in the process. So, for example, here we had, ID 1, John Doe. So we can use this ID 1, John Doe. So the user can identify himself, and he's redirected to the voting process, similarly as we saw before. So here we see a combination of a way of creating the credentials for some ephemeral identity for the users, not using the centralized backend of Vocdoni, and allowing the users to vote through the web. So we can vote here as well. It's exactly the same thing as before, just another voting process. So the vote is being sent. So in order to sum up, the problem we wanted to solve is, first of all, allowing non-app users voting, mainly, and also providing a solution for organizations that wanted to use Vocdoni, but they didn't want to share their data with Vocdoni. So first of all, we create the way of voting using a browser, a web voting, and a way for the organizations to have a credential scheme that they can share with the users in order to access the voting process. And I think this is more or less a summary. I didn't say exactly the things in the order that I had planned to, so maybe it sounded a bit confusing, but you have some time for questions. What I want to mention just is what are the next steps of this work. And the idea is, first of all, to increase the user friendliness, trying to make a more clear distinction for the organization administrators on what they should do and when what they need to do according to their needs. Also integrate this with the segmentation, mechanism that Ferran mentioned earlier in the introduction, and allowing to create login forms as the one that you saw, as this one, but not using the Excel data imported from the organization, but also using the data that already exists in the Vocdoni backend. So this data that the entity manages from here. So the entities that actually use Vocdoni in order to engage with their users could actually use their already existing data in the Vocdoni backend or the infrastructure as a service backend in order to create login pages for the voting processes. And I'm gonna stop here. I hope I was not very confusing. Please, Juan.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. It's actually the first time I see it, and it feels like magic. So congrats on the work you put in there, you guys. I wanted to ask, this model assumes, this form voting assumes that the entity, there's a trade-off, right? Regarding the security or guarantees, because the organizations could actually reproduce, right, the credentials and login. Is that correct? like this model is for probably for low stake use cases, right? More because I assume that the organization could actually cast the vote if they did that process or not. And you trust the organization. You need to trust the organization in this model of form voting.
Exactly. You need to trust either the organization or the infrastructure owner. So depending on the two cases. So for example, for the form voting itself, there is no backend involved, so you need to trust the organization because all the generation of the identities takes place in the browser. So the organization can possibly, if they would want to, have access to this data. And this is also one reason why we make this identity as one-time usage. We don't want these keys to be used. Nevertheless, this can serve, for example, let's say, for presential votings that happen in the spot, right? You create at the moment the process, then there is the people who are already maybe inside the room, they can participate in this process. There is some kind of QR code for accessing the process or everything. And you can do all this just having a static web page locally. I mean, you don't even need to have a backend to do it.
Yeah.
But this is a trade-off that, for me, this is a trade-off that the entity and the members, the organization, and the members of the organization should have the option to choose if they want, according to the circumstances. The most, for me, the most secure way is using the identity of the app, but you don't always want to go to the most secure way.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that this use case, for organizations, that's already enough. They don't need like the fullest of the nation-state level security. So, yeah, great to be able to offer these options.
Any question?
Any other question regarding multi-channel voting? Okay, I don't know. Maybe you hear a chainsaw on the back of my because someone is cutting trees just right now. Okay, so I just want to do a reminder about that we share a form on the chat that you can use to fill your name and email, and then we will include you on the census of the organization Vocdoni community, with which we will create a voting process at the end of the community call. Now I give the voice to Jordi Moraleda that will present Vocdoni Bridge. Let me give you presenter rights. Okay, now you can, Jordi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Jordi, and yeah, right after Manos, I'm going to explain and talk a bit about the other project that Ferran mentioned, which is the Vocdoni Bridge. So whereas what Manos has been explaining is basically for physical organizations, for organizations where in-person meetings are in place, we also want to tackle the crypto space. So let's draw a first line to try to differentiate these two scenarios. So in the first scenario, typically organizations have a list of people, a group of people, and then some of these people, from them, you make a census, okay? So for example, let's imagine an organization that has 200,000 people, and then you only want those of them who are over 18 years old, for example, to vote. And also those people who have paid the fees for belonging to the organization. So in this case, there is a source of truth that an organization maintains and manages. But what happens if we want to tackle the crypto space? So typically in the crypto space, what happens is that you have wallets, you have people with wallets that have tokens. Okay, this token can be of any kind. It can be a token simply for payments, or it can be a token for meaning that you have stake of a DAO or a company or whatever. But in the end, it's all about tokens. And these tokens are usually represented using the ERC20 standard on the Ethereum virtual machine. So what we need to do in this case is different than what organizations need to do. So there needs to be an admin explicitly creating a census in an organization. But when we're dealing with tokens, there is no such thing as an organization. So the Ethereum blockchain already has all of this information already there for us for free. Well, we simply need to query this information, and the census is already there. So let's imagine that, for example, we want to create a voting process where everyone who has tokens at the current block height, for example, can vote. So in this case, we would make a snapshot of the balances of every single token holder for a particular token, let's say DAI, for example. And then for a period of time, these people could be able to vote using not the census from an organization, but the snapshot from the blockchain. So what I'm going to talk about is a bit, well, slightly on the current status of this project. And then we'll mention a bit about the next steps. So first of all, we have been spending the last weeks doing a lot of research and development, kind of working out the core pieces that we need for this to run. So basically, we have been working on the storage proofs generation. I'm happy to show you what you have in front of you on the screen. These are the two core components that allow us to basically have any client generating census proofs from a given token. Okay, so you have whatever token address. This can be the DAI address, MakerDAO, Xerox district, whatever. And then any particular holder, anyone who has tokens of this contract, would be able to generate a proof, a census proof, and then use the rest of libraries that we have to cast a vote on a particular vote. This other library for Go language is already available to validate them. So what this means is that now anyone using a web browser using MetaMask as the simplest scenario by now, holding tokens of a particular contract would be able to generate a proof, cast a vote, and then any voting process running on the voting blockchain of Vocdoni would be able to receive this vote and validate it. Okay, not using the typical organization census, but using an on-chain census. So this is what we have been doing so far. What else could we show you? We also have been working on the user interface. So what you're seeing here is simply, I mean, this is a dummy user interface. There's nothing you can do with it at this point. These are the moving pieces, and then our current work is basically to do the integration of all of these pieces. But how would a user use this interface? Well, let's imagine that we have a wallet with some tokens. So we reach here at the bridge landing page. We can see a list of some of the top tokens. We could go here and simply see a list of all of them, or maybe you could choose to filter by name or by whatever means that we have. So yeah, let's imagine that we are holding Maker tokens and we want to vote. Okay, so this would be the page of all the voting processes, in this case for the DAI token. So there would be processes, ongoing processes in which we could still be part of and be casting a vote. And there would also be processes that would have finished and in which we would be able to see the results. Okay. If we are a holder of this token, whatever token it is, we would also be able to create a governance process. So this is very interesting because whereas a typical traditional organization, it is the organization itself that creates a governance process to ask people for their opinion on something. In here, the story is completely different. Anyone can create a governance process. Anyone with tokens can create a governance process. Here we would have, a form for typing in the question, the description, very similar to what Manus showed before with the manager. And then when you create a process and it starts, anyone would be able to see the actual questions, the actual options, select their choices, and then eventually submit the vote, and there you go. Okay, so again, all of this is permissionless. Anyone with tokens can create a voting process. Anyone with tokens can vote on them. So this is a sneak peek of how it looks. We also have a few more screens, but basically another one of them is your dashboard. So instead of seeing the voting process for a particular token, what you do instead is seeing a digest of all the voting processes in which you can be part of for all of your tokens. And then you also have the option, if for some reason your token is not yet listed, you would also be able to create it, to add it yourself. You would need to add the address of the contract and prove that you hold tokens of this contract. Okay, so yeah, this is a sneak peek of what the Bridge project looks like today. So again, as said, the next steps that we are currently working on are basically all about integration. So gluing all the moving pieces together, making sure that all of our libraries are supporting this new use case. And then obviously updating this user interface that you can see and make it talk to the real data so that it becomes interactive. So one last thing to mention is that once the integration is done, we would really appreciate being able to use it with some early adopters. Some organizations have shown interest so far, but yeah, if you're interested, just feel free to let us know. And that's all from my side. Any questions?
Okay. No questions. Jordi explained it very well. So
Yeah.
it's all clear.
I have a question. When can we
Thank you.
try this?
Pretty soon, we hope.
Do you have a question, Joan?
Yeah. You didn't hear it? When can we try? When can we try it?
Yeah, I was saying pretty soon. Our internal goal is to have it before the end of the year, ideally in 2 weeks' time. But yeah,
Cool.
it's a bit early for this. But yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, we have the impression that we're not too far away from this. It's only a matter of integration and gluing everything
Nice.
together.
So after that, we will be basically allowing for deterministic execution, right? Like the output of a vote could be used as an input for triggering whatever action in another smart contract. Is that correct? Or we would still need
There is an ongoing roadmap for this. So the very first milestone we have with this release is basically allowing anyone with tokens to vote. Then we actually support the publishing of these results on chain. So yet there still needs to be an oracle, which so the flow is basically you from a web browser use the Ethereum blockchain to generate a proof, and then you submit this proof and your vote to the voting blockchain, which is Vocdoni's voting blockchain, which is a layer 2 implementation, which is specialized on this. Then if you want votes to be tallied on the Ethereum blockchain, like again, there needs to be an oracle, which, as I was saying, which brings the results from the voting blockchain into Ethereum. And then after this, there will be an event, an Ethereum event that will allow anyone to read these results and act accordingly.
Okay.
This is expected for the very, very first implementation, but this is not too far away in time. Maybe in January this can be available perfectly.
Great. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you, Jordi, and thank you, Manos. Now it's the open space time, so feel free to ask anything or to open any topic you want to introduce on the agenda, and let's talk about this. On the meantime, I will close the census. I think Teresa was the last one that asked for to be included, and so I will let you debate on the meantime while I create the voting process with the census. So I don't know if any of you want to open a topic. Or maybe Teresa.
I think the guy in Canada is cutting trees, and the microphone is on.
Yes, sorry about that. So I don't know. Maybe Teresa, do you want to present yourself? And maybe Andrews. Andrew raised your hand. So Andrew, do you have any question?
Yeah, I was involved with a hackathon, and I'm wondering about the use of voting that's maybe a combination of group voting and what I would call centralized voting. The kind of sensibility of blockchain is very decentralized. And the first thing that you presented was a centralized voting system. And I'm wondering if during a hackathon, there could be the centralized voting and group voting within different projects. And somehow there's some combination of that group voting and centralized voting.
I think if I can answer that, yeah. So what I was talking about in the first part was not about the platform that actually does the voting. Is about how the census is being generated. So no matter how you generate the census, the whole voting process is implemented using the Vocdoni, which is a Tendermint blockchain that Vocdoni has implemented, and which is running, and some gateways are being used in order to send the votes. The gateways send the votes to the Vocdoni, and everything remains like that. But what changes is all the process that is needed before in order to generate the census. And in this process, there are many approaches that could be taken according to the necessities of the organizations that are making the voting process. So this part can be either centralized or decentralized, but doesn't have to do with the counting of the votes or with the votes themselves. It has to do with how the census is being generated, because in order to generate a census, you need data. You need the data of the people that are going to participate. Minimum, you need the identities of these people. So my presentation was essentially for this first part of just creating the census. The rest of the part is totally decentralized. So I'm not sure whether your question was directed on the census itself or on the voting process.
It's a kind of high-level question about voting. I enjoyed your presentation, and in general, I could see DAOs being very decentralized, people having breakout groups, switching from one group to another. So I'm just wondering about a combination of group voting within these kind of breakout groups with central voting on big governance issues as opposed to group issues. You used it on a DAO where there's lots of group activity going on. In nature, you know, our brains make decisions based on emerging ideas. There'll be lots of activity in the brain and some neurons will be sparking. And then eventually you'll come up with the winning idea. So that's a complex system. And the emerging idea comes from kind of group activity between neurons in the brain, and then one idea emerges. So it would be good when looking at voting from a high level, how to kind of copy how the brain does things.
I think that to answer that, it's very important to differentiate what we as individuals would like governance to be like. And most of us who are in this space have a pretty strong views and opinions on that. But one of the things we've noticed by working closely with organizations is that governance per se is not sexy. Okay, governance per se is not something that you know they want to start innovating on, and some yes, you know, some do, but we have seen that they just need a solution for secure and end-to-end verifiable voting, telematic voting, and we adapt and we try to provide the best tools, right? We are agnostic on what governance should be like in those organizations. We want to provide the tools so that, you know, as you say, if other governance mechanisms, more bottom-up or organic, emerge, then we would love that to happen. And the technology that we have created allows for that, but we don't make assumptions, right, on how the organizations should use these tools. I don't know if that answers a little bit your question, but I'm sure this is great to be further studied in a hackathon, for example, studying how these puzzles could be mixed together to create new governance, new forms of governance.
Well, that's an excellent response. It's a coffee time. It's a informal meeting, so I'm just speculating.
Oh yeah, of course. That's why we make these coffees. So I'm really grateful for the input.
Yeah, in general, I would only like to add, in general, so would we provide, what you need to provide are kind of two pieces, okay? One of them is the subject on which people are debating and deciding and voting, okay? And the other one is the rules that define how this governance works. So the rules can be something like votes. Voters can use at most this many points, or there is quadratic voting cost, or you can replace your vote if for some reason you were coerced, or everything is anonymous, or everything is public, things like this. Yeah. You define these rules, but this is totally independent from the process which you use to generate this census, and this is still also independent from all of the metadata and the questions and the options and the consequences of the results.
Mm.
Thank you. I'm thinking of maybe innovations in the kinds of decisions that people are making while the voting is going on. Maybe that's what I'm getting at. You start off with rules, and then during the voting process, people start saying, well, maybe now that we're understanding the problem better, this might be a good approach. So
you mean more like signaling, right? Receiving signaling from, not a hardcore vote, which is the end of the governance process, but somehow receiving signaling on the topic and verified signaling.
Yeah, very often in top-down organizations, centralized, authoritarian, they say, this is what we're voting on, and that's the end of the discussion. I think in more of a blockchain, decentralized scenario, people are going to say, well, I don't think we should be voting on this. So that's good. Signaling is a good word. Or feedback loop during the voting process.
Just to mention that apart from the DAO evolvements that are going more to the direction that you are mentioning, also we at the same time for the other part that I have presented, we are developing new forms, let's say, of voting processes that would be much more dynamic. And this would ideally also allow a process to evolve while it's active. So I think this would lead to something probably closer to what you described, right? You described like a live organism. The process should not be something fixed and pre-decided, right? If I understood correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a use case that that we assume that can exist, which is the one of a dynamic census. For example, let's imagine a city council interested in the opinion of the citizens. Okay, but obviously the people living on a village is not exactly always the same. So I mean, the census of this group of people is an evolving thing. And yeah, we make for a use case like this. There are other things that we think that should not be able to change. For example, while a process is ongoing, you will not typically be able to update the metadata. So that, for example, what choice number 1 was yes and choice number 2 was no, all of a sudden things get flipped and you're voting opposite of what you were thinking. But yeah, there are definitely some approaches and some scenarios that that could leverage the things that you propose, like having a dynamic census.
Okay. Now I don't know if Teresa wanted to add something or to ask something. I saw he introduced herself on the chat, but I don't know if she also wanted to say something. I think she doesn't have the microphone, right? Yeah. Okay. So I created the voting process. I think all the people on this call is able to participate. So if you go to your app, you will see a voting process starting in 7 minutes. So in 7 minutes, you can start to vote, and then we will see the results on the screen.
By the way, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about. I think there is a bug on the application because I can see the HTML tags.
Yeah.
text. So for some reason it's okay. That's a known bug.
Yeah, this is a known bug and will be fixed as soon as the next version of the app is released.
Okay, great.
I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. Do you see my screen?
Loading.
Almost. Yeah, it does appear now.
Okay. So basically, if you open the app, you will have Vocdoni community as an entity. Then you can check the news and updates. And also you will see a participation process that it still didn't start yet. It will start in 4 minutes. And it will say also if you are part of the census. Then you will see the questions above. As Pau said, there is a small bug that shows HTML tags on the descriptions. And now I will show you how does this looks on the Explorer. The Explorer is basically a tool that allows you to check all the information regarding the Vocdoni infrastructure. So you can see each voting process is going on, all the entities that are registered on the Vocdoni infrastructure, and so on. So now I will look for this specific process, and we see that it still doesn't have results and votes, of course. We can also see on the manager itself. We can also see.
Can you show the transactions tab on the?
Yeah.
Okay. Here is the. I just wanted to check the create new process transaction. Can you open it to show the example? How it looks? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to explain?
This information comes from Ethereum. So there has been a transaction to Ethereum, to the Vocdoni smart contract with this information, and now the Oracle has forwarded to the blockchain, the voting blockchain. Yeah, just this.
Okay. Well, there is a lot of information that can be useful. Can be useful to check all the things that are happening on the infrastructure. This is why it's universally verifiable. You can trust our own deployment of the blockchain Explorer, but you can also deploy your own instance on a server that you own, and it will show you all the information of what is going on there. So in 1 minute, you will be able to vote, and we will start to see votes coming. Let me Okay. Feel free to ask anything or open any topic you want. Even if you have problems, if you don't appear on the census or anything.
Can you go to the transactions tab? I think it will be more interesting to see the votes coming.
Yeah.
Transactions.
Transactions. Does it auto refresh? How?
Yeah, I think so, but Nate will.
Yeah, it should. Yep.
Okay.
Now we are estimating the time based on block time, but the block time is not always exact, so there could be some seconds or even some minutes of delay. I think now it's only like something like 2 blocks, so a block happens every 10, 12 seconds, more or less. And once we reach the block number, then the votes are allowed to enter into the blockchain.
13 seconds is the countdown.
John, Phil, it's open.
Now, yeah, now it's open.
Yeah, now it's open.
Let's see who's the
So
first.
you can vote. You will see what I vote. So you will be able to send the vote, and then basically it signed the vote with your private key. It delivered it to the blockchain, and then you have to wait until it's confirmed. Okay, now my vote entered. And we can already see the results on the app.
I think you maybe has to update the Explorer. Maybe your connection is.
No.
No.
Yeah.
They come. Okay,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes.
Yeah. But then we have 8 votes, so maybe we have to refresh it again. Yeah. A new vote entered. Yeah. And then we can see also in the process details, as it's an open poll, so it's not encrypted until the end. Sorry, it's like raising hands. We can see also the results on the Explorer. Okay. Yeah. So the people that vote, do you have any feedback that you want to share? You can also share your feedback on the public chat. We are super excited about this because this is the first voting process that we do with the community, and we would like you to be involved in this informal entity. So we will keep sending some updates on the project and also doing some polls. So if you have activated the notifications on the app, you will be receiving some information during the following months. So Dan says, from the UI, it was unclear if it will auto-update when the vote started or if I had to keep opening, closing to refresh. Yeah, this is something that Jordi or Nate can answer.
Yeah, by default, the app has to deal with a balance of between usability and efficiency, I would say. So the best way to be able to estimate, for example, the start block or the start date is by asking gateways. So this means that if we are asking too often, it's good because we have immediate feedback, but the counterpart is that then we are overloading the whole infrastructure. By itself, I think that the app auto updates every 10 seconds or every 10-ish, 20-ish, something like that. Maybe there is still some glitch between the whole screen repainting itself so that you can vote, but the estimate counter should be updating itself. So we can, yet about the UX, we can probably work on that, just so that users have it clear that the app will self-update it.
Okay, Dan is saying maybe just show those 20 out of dates via animation or something. Okay. Before finishing this community call, I also want to share again the screen to show you the application again. Let me know when you see my screen. Jordi or Manos can.
We do.
Okay, so if you see the application, you will see there is, now it's in Catalan because my application is in Catalan, but you will see under participation section another button that is called Ignore l'activitat in Catalan, ignore activity, I think in English, that if you see a bell that is cross, it means that the notifications on this application, on this organization are disabled. So if you want to receive notifications, you have to click until the bell appears without a crossing bar, and then you will start to receive push notifications on the smartphone when an update, so a news or a voting process it starts.
Yeah, I would like to add, this is something that we're going to update by default. This will probably be already there on the next version that we upload. So that by default, when you simply visit an entity, you would immediately add it to your list of entities. And then you would also subscribe to it. So you always have the option of opting out, but yeah, so push notifications, they are working. I received myself the notification when you created the process. And the main change here is that by default, we would like people to be subscribed instead of needing an active action, because otherwise a lot of people simply miss out on what's happening.
Okay, great. Last question, if there is any. If not, we will finish here. Okay. So thank you all for participating in our community call. We are happy to see that there are more and more faces, people attending on this community call. And we hope to see you also in the coming ones. And the next one will be the last one of the year, and it will be held on 22nd of December. So thank you very much for coming, and see you on the next community call.
Thank you.
Thanks, Baran. Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.